Programming System. Before discussing Object-Oriented Programming System, we will be first discussing what is Procedure-Oriented Programming System. In the procedure-oriented, the task to be done is divided into subtasks, and each and every subtask is called as a procedure or function. Procedure is nothing but our function definition, our reusable blocks. In procedure-oriented programming, task to be done is divided into subtasks, and each and every subtask is called as a procedure. But in object-oriented programming, the task to be done is divided into subtasks, and each and every subtask is called as a class. Each and every subtask is called as a class. So, we are actually discussing Python, right? But why are we discussing regarding object-oriented programming? Is there any relation between procedure? Is there any relation between Python and object-oriented programming? Yes. Basically, Python is an object-oriented programming language. Java is an object-oriented programming language. C is not an object-oriented programming language. I am telling that Java and Python are object-oriented programming languages, but C is not object-oriented programming language. Why? What is the reason? Why are we calling those two as object-oriented? Why not C means? See, for a language to be object-oriented, the code in that language must be written using classes and objects. In any language, if I write the code using classes and objects, then I can call that language as object-oriented programming language. In Java, we will be writing the code by using the classes and objects. So we can call Java as object-oriented programming language. In Python also, we can write the code using classes and objects. So we can call Python as also an object-oriented programming language. In C, we cannot write the code using classes and objects. There is no concept of class and object in C. So we will be telling like C is not an object-oriented programming language because there is no classes and objects there. So what I am telling you, in any language, if you write the code using classes and objects, then that language is called as object-oriented programming. In Python, we can use classes and objects in writing the code. So we can call Python as object-oriented programming language. So I'm telling that classes and objects, right? What is a class basically? Simple definition for the class is, it is a collection of variables and functions. Functions, methods, function definitions, anything is same. We can also call variables as properties or fields. And we can call functions as also methods, behaviors, function definitions, anything is okay. Class is a collection of variables and functions. But what is an object then? Any real world entity is called as an object. Any real world entity is called as an object. An object can represent a person, a bank account, or anything. An object can represent a person, bank account, or anything. See, let us say student is a class. In that, the variables and functions in the sense like student number will be there, for student name will be there, for student address will be there. See, these are the variables. And methods in the sense what the student will do, he will pay the fee. he will join. Like we can take the methods like reading, writing, listening, etc. So class is basically a collection of variables and methods. For example, student is a class which can have the variables like student number, student name, student address, and methods like fee, join, reading, writing, etc. Object. Any real world entity is called as an object. An object can represent a person, a bank account, or anything. In order to clearly understand the difference between a class and object, we will consider like this. Student, here, yes and no, yes name, something like that I've taken. Student 1, SNO equal to 101, yes name equal to John. Student 2, SNO equal to 102, yes name equal to Peter. Peter. Let me draw. Yes. So if you can observe this, student is called as a class and student 1 is called as object, and even student 2 is also called as an object. So from this what you can understand is class represents everybody. That means generally all the students should have what, like number, name, like that. So all the students should have what, generally that is going to be represented by a class. So generalization is called as a class. But object, student 1 is an object that is representing only the student with the particular ID 101. Student 2 is an object which is representing a student with the ID 102. Student 1 object represents only John. Student 2 object represents only Peter. That means what? Class is like generalization. Generally all the students should have what and what the class will be representing. But object is a real world entity. Yes, the student is really existed. This object is going to represent a particular entity. That means student 1 object is representing only a particular student with ID 101. Student 2 is an object that is representing only a particular student with the ID 102. So specialization. Object is like it's going to represent a specific entity. Okay. So hope you got the difference between a class and object. Okay. So what is the syntax to create a class? What is the syntax to create a class? So class is a keyword and class name you have to put. Class name you have to put. Then put a colon. What are the variables and methods you want to put in the class? Yes, you can put them. Variables and methods. That's it. Just come out of the class. So this is the syntax to create a class. Syntax to create a class. So, for example, I will be taking a class student and the variables inside the student class is like yes and no, which is equal to 101, yes name equal to Peter, yes address is equal to UK. And what is the method I'm taking in the class? Def function definition fee $1,000 is the fee to be paid. So in this way, in a class, you can have the variables and functions, reusable blocks. As per the requirements, you have to create the variables and functions in the class. It's a collection of variables and functions. The syntax will look like this. Class name, the required variables and functions. So if you can observe, see, basically we can call Python as both procedure oriented and object oriented language. Why like that? See, in procedure oriented languages, only the functions will be there. That means functions will be there like normally. Outside the class only there will be functions like function m1, like function m2, like that. See, basically in procedure oriented languages, pure functions will be there. Without classes, directly we can put the functions. In Python also we can do that, right? Till the last classes we have written the functions directly. Up to today's class or up to this video, we have never used any class to write a function. Directly we used to put the functions, right? So generally in the object oriented programming languages, we will have the functions directly without classes. So in Python also without classes you are putting functions, right? So we can call Python as what? Procedure oriented programming language or procedure oriented scripting language. And just now we have discussed we can have classes, in the classes also we can write the definitions, right? In the classes also we can write the definitions in Python. So generally if the functions are written in the classes, then that language is called as what? Object oriented. In Python, you can write the functions inside the classes also, right? So you can call this Python as also object oriented. Object oriented. See, the point is, in the procedure oriented languages, directly you will write the procedures without any classes. In the object oriented languages, you can write the procedures inside the classes. You will write the procedures inside the classes. But in Python, you can do both, right? Without classes, you can write the definitions. Within the classes also, you can write the definitions. So like procedure oriented languages, direct functions you can put without taking classes. Like object oriented languages, inside the class you can put the definitions. So we can call Python as both procedure and object oriented language. Okay, so in the next video I will show you an example on object oriented programming system. Okay, we will implement the principles of this OOPS and we will be discussing. Thank you.